Good morning from the village of Pickett's End in Hertfordshire, where I'm about to visit some unique religious paintings. These particular images were mutilated centuries ago and then whitewashed, and there's even a suggestion that the murals could be linked to the heretical Cathar sect.
And here it is, a stunning piece of religious art that remained hidden for centuries, but can now be seen on select open days or in private viewings. I was lucky enough to experience the latter. The paintings were discovered by Arthur Lindley, carefully concealed behind a layer of linen and 6 subsequent layers of wallpaper that had been applied over the centuries with no clue as to what lay beneath. So, with rumours swirling about the nature of the paintings, I thought it was best to get an expert opinion. And that was provided by Karen Murphy, a trustee of the Pickett's End Charitable Trust that was founded in February this year. Karen's research comes from the completion of a Masters of Research degree from the Institute of Historical Research.
We're standing in this beautiful cottage in Pickett's End looking at these amazing wall paintings. They've been dated to 1527 by a survey of dendrochronology, which has dated the floor plate of the wall and shows that the building was painted in 1527. Centre stage, we've got Christ in majesty, blessing with his right hand all who come before him, and holding the globus maximus in his left hand, showing that he holds the safety of the world in his hand. To his left, we've got the baptism of Jesus. We can tell it's the baptism because we've got St. John the Baptist here wearing a camel skin. We can see the head of the camel and the camel skin and the hoof of the camel, and then the angel above holding Christ's clothes with these beautiful furled wings either side. So this is the moment when Jesus receives the Holy Spirit, and it's considered that this is the start of his ministry on earth. And then the end of his ministry is clearly depicted here by this picture of the Pieta, an image of the Virgin Mary holding the body of her dead son, with the orange cross behind with the Greek letters showing that this is Jesus. At either side of these panels, we've got 2 really important images. Here we've got an image of St. Peter. We can tell it's St. Peter because he's holding the keys to the gates of heaven, and he's wearing full papal regalia here. He's wearing the papal tiara with the cross on. He's got a lovely fur ruff, and in his left hand he's holding the papal staff with the 3 crosses. And again he's oriented so that his right hand is blessing these middle 3 panels. Balancing that at the other end, we've got another pope. We can see here again more clearly that the triple papal tiara. In his left hand he's got the triple papal cross. Again he's oriented so his right hand is blessing Jesus' ministry. And from either wrist we've got an anchor. And that makes this St. Clement. And St. Clement is being depicted here clearly because the ruling pope in 1527 was Pope Clement VII. In fact, he was the pope who denied Henry VIII his divorce from Catherine of Aragon. On the bottom 3 panels, unfortunately, one of them has been knocked through at some point when a doorway was knocked through in the 19th century. But to either side of that, we've got St. Catherine of Alexandria. She can be seen here with the Catherine wheel. She's holding a sword in her left hand and a book representing her learning in her right hand, with the lovely Tudor headdress and the feathered nimbus behind her head. And over this side, we've got St. Margaret of Antioch. St. Margaret of Antioch holding a golden crucifix between her hands, and at the bottom is a depiction of the dragon with some of the dress hanging out of his mouth. St Margaret of Antioch was one of the most important saints in medieval England, particularly appealing to women, because she was the patron saint of childbirth. And of course in 1527 the hot topic of the day would have been Henry VIII's inability to father a living male heir.
There's been suggestions that there are Cathar elements within this particular mural. What is your view on that?
Well, actually I would have to say that I don't think you could get further away from Cathar beliefs than this painting. The Cathars were eliminated on papal orders, and here we've got two popes. We've got the first pope and we've got the ruling pope at the time, both showing that this is a highly Catholic painting, and both depicting that this is the role of the pope in administering like Jesus's role on earth, which is really important. The fact that the Cathars were wiped out by the popes, I would suggest that they would never have actually chosen to depict the popes, particularly the fact that St Peter has been depicted with full papal regalia rather than the more usual route of showing him just as the leading apostle. There's also the cross here. The Cathars did not believe in the crucifixion, they did not believe in baptism, and we've got a baptism scene. So I would suggest that actually this is a highly political statement in support of the Catholic Church at the time of 1527, when there was huge religious unrest between the Protestants and the Catholics over in Europe, and locally between the Lollards and the Catholics here. So this is a really strong support of the Catholic Church. We can clearly see that the faces have been removed at some point, and that may have happened during the Reformation, which happens in England in the 1530s, or possibly as late as the 1540s. But it's interesting how even removing the imagery of the face still enables us to read the identity of each of the images depicted here.
The Pickett's End Charitable Trust looks after the building and the paintings and is raising funds to purchase the building to preserve it into the future. The charity is particularly raising funds for the 500-year anniversary coming up in 2027. The cottage itself is Grade 1 listed, the only Grade 1 listed cottage in Hertfordshire, recognising the importance of these unique surviving wall paintings. The paintings represent the only near-complete survival of pre-Reformation wall paintings in a domestic space. It is also worthy of note that, in a later use in 1823, Sir Astley Paston Cooper, surgeon to King George IV, established the country's first free cottage hospital here to deal with accidents happening on the building of the railways. He honed his skills at amputations before anaesthetics were developed, and was known to have paid grave robbers to acquire corpses for him to practice on. In speaking to me, Karen later realised she'd only really talked about the what and not the why, so she later told me, "I think that is about why the owner felt it necessary to make such a political statement of allegiance to the Catholic Church and the monarchy just before the Reformation, so Henry was still staunchly Catholic and had just been appointed Defender of the Faith for writing a response to Martin Luther. The Reformation had been raging in Europe for 10 years, and there was lots of Protestant propaganda being smuggled into the country and being distributed. A recent inquisition by the Bishop of Lincoln had resulted in some heretical Lollards being burnt to death in nearby Amersham, and in retribution St Mary's Church in nearby Rickmansworth was vandalised and indulgences were circulating, offering days off of purgatory for anyone who contributed to the repair of the church. So at the time the Catholic Church was under attack internationally and locally, hence the permanent painting that would leave visitors in no doubt as to the owner's allegiance. She added, "We talked about the supposed Cathar link, but also it was previously believed that this was possibly a pilgrim's hostel, but I believe it's more likely to have been a merchant involved with Pickett's End Mill and the supply of wheat and flour to London." Referring to the mural's defaced subjects, she said, "The faces were scratched off, defaced probably during the Reformation, but with minimum damage to preserve the rest of the imagery." In 1547 an injunction is issued by Edward that religious imagery is no longer allowed, even within your own home, so that was probably when it was covered over, where it remained concealed for over 400 years. The cottage will be opening for a public event on the 5th of June as a fundraising cream tea afternoon, and again as part of a National Heritage Open Days event on the weekend of the 13th and 14th of September. The Hidden History channel passes on its thanks and appreciation to Karen for showing me around and sharing the site's amazing history. See the website in the description for more details. But for now that's it for this video. Don't forget to like, share and most importantly subscribe. And you can also support the channel on Subscribestar via the link in the description or via YouTube's Super Thanks. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.